of all, we're going to start with the ground rules. We're going to be talking about sleep today, so nobody can fall asleep during this talk for the next hour, okay? So promise me nobody's going to fall asleep. How many of you didn't get enough sleep last night? Did not. Oh, dude. Yeah. Have you heard that lack of sleep is a major contributing factor to all kinds of different types of health problems that we're dealing with in our country? And chronic loss of sleep is endemic in the United States at this point in time. And the purpose of this talk is to hopefully give you some tools that you can take with you that will help you get better sleep, get the sleep that you need. And I guarantee you, before you leave today, I guarantee it, you're going to hear some things that you've never heard before in your life regarding sleep and the impact that it has on you from an overall health standpoint. So hopefully you'll find this to be pretty cool. Before we get into the presentation, would it be all right if I share a little bit of my background for those that haven't heard me speak before, just so you know who I am and how I got here? My name is Dr. Bill Kriva. I'm the clinic director for Parkview Chiropractic Clinic in Oakdale. And I am a second career chiropractor. I actually have an engineering degree from the University of Wisconsin in Madison and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. And everybody looks at me right now and I'm seeing the furrowed eyebrows right now going, what in the world are you doing standing here teaching a class as a chiropractor? Now maybe you're kind of thinking that right now. Going, how did you get here, right? I was blessed with a little something called sciatica. Anybody heard of that before? Yeah, sciatic nerves are the largest nerves in the body. They go down the back of the leg and into the foot. I had debilitating sciatica. I walked with a limp. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't sit at my desk for any extended periods of time. I had young kids. I couldn't get on the floor to play with them. Mowing the lawn was literally a pain in the backside. And I tried everything to get rid of it. Went to the family doctor, tried the medications, didn't help. Physical therapy, no help. Heating, icing, stretching, nothing helped. And I went 7 years with that kind of debilitating pain. How many of you think that's a problem right there? And I was told, we can't figure it out. There's nothing we can do for you, right? One day at work, dragging my leg around behind me, limping, an engineering colleague said, why don't you go see a chiropractor? And I said, what's that? Because I'd never been to one. I had no clue what chiropractic was, but convinced me to try it. And after 7 years, the chiropractor figured out what was causing my problem and basically gave me back my life and got rid of that pain. The more I learned about chiropractic, the more interested I became in doing this as a career. So after 12 years as a successful engineer, packed up a wife and 4 kids at the time, moved to Davenport, Iowa, where I went to Palmer College of Chiropractic. Anybody heard of Palmer before? I see some heads nod. Are you from Iowa by any chance?
No, a girlfriend of mine went to school there. She's a chiropractor now.
Really? Cool. Where does she practice?
I don't know, North or South Dakota.
And okay, that's funny because I just heard about another doc going to North Dakota to practice. But anyway, graduated first in my class. I figured I should study, right, as long as I'm changing careers with all this. And had a wonderful practice in southeast Wisconsin for 6 years. But I grew up here in the Twin Cities. I grew up in Burnsville. And it's hard to believe now, but 15 years ago, we found out about an opportunity to buy a practice here. We sold our office in Wisconsin. We moved up here. I have had the opportunity to touch literally thousands and now tens of thousands of lives, helping people regain their health, and then once they've regained their health, maintain their health long term. I've traveled all over the country teaching seminars, teaching other chiropractors, teaching the general public. I'm off the road for a little while right now, so I get to come and spend some time with you here. I've written 2 books that have been published. I got a 3rd one that I'm working on right now that hopefully will be coming out before the end of the year. We're going to see if we can't get that done. Let Your Innate Sing is a book that I wrote that's won 2 National Book Awards now. And I am very happy to come here and spend some time with you talking about sleep. There's all kinds of amazing things that we're learning about sleep, how critically important it is to your health. And I hope by the time we're done that you will have some takeaway messages that you can take with you that are going to make an impact on your health. How many of you'd like to learn a few things about how to get better sleep and more rest? All right, well, you're in the right place. We know that chronic sleep loss can cause a whole host of different types of health problems. Heart disease, heart attack, heart failure, irregular heartbeat, high blood pressure, stroke, and diabetes have all been linked to people not getting enough sleep, unfortunately. In England, they did what's called the Whitehall 2 study. They followed 10,000 British civil servants over the course of 20 years, and they found that those individuals that had cut their sleep from 7 hours a night to 5 hours or fewer doubled the risk of death from all causes Lack of sleep double the risk of death from cardiovascular disease in particular. How many of you knew lack of sleep could cause heart attacks? All right, most people haven't heard that. A few hands have gone up, but most people haven't heard that. 2004 study, people who sleep less than 6 hours a day were almost 30% more likely to become obese than those who slept 7 to 9 hours. By the way, take a guess with me. How many hours of sleep do you think the average American gets?
6.
I heard 5, I'm hearing 5, I'm hearing 6. I don't hear anybody say 9. Isn't that weird? You guys are right on. Traveling around the country, talking to different groups, somewhere between 5 and 6 hours of sleep a night is pretty much the norm, pretty much typical for most folks. In this room, how many of you get at least 6 a night, out of curiosity?
Usually.
Okay. How about 7 a night? How about 8? How about 9? Okay, cool. We have a few folks that are getting some good sleep, but most of the group here is pretty much the same. So what happens when we don't have enough sleep? Did you know that you lose your ability to learn if you don't get enough sleep? Where did you hear that? Your
Personal experience.
personal experience. What happened with you?
I get dumb.
When you don't get enough sleep, right? Yeah, did anybody here do the all-nighters when you were in college? Yeah. How'd that work for you? Everybody does it, but everybody says after the fact it didn't work. What happened when you did the all-nighters?
I think it's just harder to pay attention and focus. You're exhausted after the test or whatever you had to do.
Yeah, you're exhausted. It's hard to recall the information, right? I did it when I first started engineering school. I did it one time and I said, I'll never do that again. I looked at the test and the stuff on the test I'd never seen before in my life, even though I spent all night looking at it and studying it, right? Couldn't remember. Here's the problem. When we experience things during the course of the day, whether we learn things, hear things, experience things, when we're sleeping at night, our brains take all that information and organize it all. And then they put it into neat little files and stick it into filing cabinets in our brain so that when we need the information, we can go to that filing cabinet, open up, and retrieve it. If we don't get enough sleep, we don't get the information stuck in the file cabinet, and it's gone. So if you want to be able to learn, if you want to be effective at learning, getting proper sleep is important. As a chiropractic student, anybody know what the average student takes in college per semester for credit hours? 12 to 16, bingo, that's it. As a chiropractic student, I took 32 credits a semester. Think about that a minute, okay? It was crazy, and I was also working 2 jobs at the time to help pay the bills. But I got 8 hours of sleep every night. I shut everything down at 10 o'clock, and I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because I knew this. If I wanted to be successful, I needed to be able to retain the information. Reasoning is decreased when we don't get enough sleep. Reaction time. Have you ever had the night where you didn't get any sleep? What do you feel like the next day? Sluggish, right? Really slow reaction time, right? It's just like everything's moving in slow motion, right? That's what happens. It's just a physiological effect, and I'll explain why that happens here in a minute. This will be something you've never heard before. Executive function, your ability to get things done, to organize your thoughts, to multitask, to move from one thing to the next. It's all part of executive function. Have you ever had the day where you didn't sleep the night before? How does it go at work while you're doing that? Not so good. What happens? You're zoning. Yeah, you stare at the wall, right? You can't get anything done. The executive function isn't working real well when you don't get any sleep. Focus, the ability to focus on what you're doing, is also affected by a lack of sleep. So obviously, how many of you agree we need to have pretty good sleep, okay, in order to be functional? Now, there's another component to loss of sleep that I promise you some of you maybe have heard of, but most of you have not. And that is when we don't get enough sleep, we predispose ourselves to having chronic pain problems. Have you heard this? How many of you heard this one before? One person, that's what I thought. So I told you you're gonna hear new things today that you've never heard before. So when we go through our daily activities, just normal activity, our bodies incur something called microtraumas. Have you heard of that before? Yeah, it's normal wear and tear. It's little bits of damage to the joints, to the joint surfaces, the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles. We get little tiny tears and things like that in those connective tissues, and that's perfectly normal. It's exactly how our bodies are built. So, you know, we may see a little damage in the tendons, like in the rotator or the elbow, for example, for tennis elbow. We may see joint issues develop. So as we go through the course of the day, we build up these microtraumas, this damage throughout the body. At night, when we sleep, is when we repair those microtraumas. Okay? So how many of you see a problem if we don't get enough sleep and we don't get the microtraumas repaired? There could be a problem that develops. And that's exactly what we see happening. We find tendonitis becomes very common in folks that don't get enough sleep. Tendons, when they're damaged, don't heal very quickly. They've got a really lousy blood supply. So when we have damage to the tendon, it takes longer to heal. If you're not sleeping enough, we have a problem. We see muscle strains developing and chronic pain in the muscles in individuals that don't sleep enough because of this. And arthritis. If you think about arthritis, you have a joint surface that gets damaged, it gets painful. We don't want to move that joint surface. If a joint doesn't move, it deteriorates faster. So now it hurts, we move it less, it hurts more, and we get into this downward spiral, and it all comes because we're not getting enough sleep to repair the microtrauma. But unfortunately, we see a lot of people going around with chronic arthritis pain as well as a result of not getting the sleep. New insight as well. This one, I guarantee you nobody's heard this before. This thing on the right side of the picture here is what a nerve cell looks like. That's called a neuron. And you can see the charge is flowing this way and going out the little spiky things on that neuron, right? Guess what? That's not how it works. When I was studying neurology, going through chiropractic school, all of us knew that the flow of information through a nerve started out here at the tips and then moved into the center of the nerve cell and then went out through this big, long part of the cell connecting to another nerve cell over here. And by the way, this is myelin, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. What you're seeing here is brand new research. We have now learned that when we sleep, instead of the electrical signals going through the nerve, the way I just described from the pointing things out through the tail here, the electrical flow reverses. And when it reverses, guess what we're doing? Recharging. We're recharging the batteries up here in the brain. We reset those nerve cells, the brain cells, for the next day when we sleep, and we get them ready and charged back up for the next day. Never know this before. This is brand new stuff. We've never seen it before because we couldn't measure it. Now we can see it. I'm going to get to why that's really important here in just a second. By the way, how many of you think that's kind of cool? Pretty neat, right? Never heard that before. There's another little piece of the puzzle, this myelin sheath. Has anybody here worked with electrical wiring before? Played with it? Familiar with it? Okay. What's around the outside of the electrical wire? A coating, yeah, insulation, right? What's the purpose of the insulation? Bingo, you don't want to be losing that electrical charge from the wire going through there. You don't want it to short out. It protects it and it allows that flow of current to go through the wire without interruption. In our bodies, the nerve cells are like electrical wires. These things are like electrical wires carrying a charge. And wrapped around the outside, we have something called the myelin sheath. This is basically made up of fat. And what it does is it insulates the wire underneath so that the charges can move very rapidly down the nerve, carrying the electrical charge very quickly, very efficiently to the next cells. Anybody ever heard of MS, multiple sclerosis? What happens in MS is the immune system of the individual with MS thinks this myelin is actually a foreign invader, like a foreign bacteria or a virus, and it attacks the myelin, and it causes damage to the myelin, and as a result, MS patients have neurological problems, don't they? They have coordination issues, they may have chronic pain type problems, and it's because of the damage to this myelin. University of Wisconsin-Madison, my alma mater, did some research and found that when we sleep, we actually produce cells that repair and grow that myelin sheath. How many of you agree with me that if you're not getting the proper cells in the time to repair this myelin sheath, you're going to have problems with that nervous system function over time? And this is what we start seeing. We don't get enough sleep, we're not able to repair the myelin as well. And obviously for somebody with MS, this is critically important at this stage of the game. So, cool on that so far? All right, any questions about this before I move on? Because now we're about to change gears, and I promise you're going to change your understanding of how your body functions probably forever with this commentary. This class is not designed to be a study of genetics, and we're not going to get into a lot of detail, but question for you. What is the purpose of DNA? How many of you remember that from your high school or college biology class? What is the purpose of DNA? Does anybody remember?
To store genetic information.
Stores genetic information, right? The DNA is the code that determines what our body looks like, how our body's put together, our facial features, all that kind of stuff, right? DNA is used to produce what? Does anybody remember?
Proteins?
Bingo, proteins. Who said that? Good, nice job. DNA is used to produce proteins in our bodies, and my understanding of DNA, what I was taught going through school, was that one gene equals one protein. Does anybody remember that from before? So one gene makes RNA, RNA makes protein, one gene equals one protein. We need 120,000 proteins to make a human being. That's a fact, okay? So kind of where we're at. That's our understanding. There is a new field of research now called epigenetics. Anybody heard of this, by the way? Anyone in the room at all? Where did you hear about epigenetics?
I'm in school getting a bachelor's in biology, so we talked about it in some of my courses.
Bingo! Bachelor's in biology, so you're studying this stuff right now. This is brand new. It's cutting edge, and it is astonishing. What we're learning is that there can be other factors that change the expression of the DNA in your body other than just the sequence, the DNA that you have. Here's the problem. As human beings, we need 120,000 proteins to form the human body. We only have 35,000 genes. Did you know they finished the Human Genome Project? They studied the human genome. We know exactly all the genes that make up human beings. We only have 35,000. How many of you see a problem with this? If one gene equals one protein, Houston, we got an issue, right? Something's going on. Therefore, we need to be able to produce more than one protein per gene. When they were doing all this genetic research over the course of the last 60 years, what they would do is go into the cell. They would take the nucleus out of the cell. Half the material in the nucleus was DNA, and they would put that aside. And then they would take the other half, which was protein, scrape it off the DNA, throw it in a wastebasket, because they wanted to study the good stuff, because DNA was the source of life. That's what we were taught. DNA is the source of life. So they threw all this stuff in the bucket. Finished the Human Genome Project, said, we got a problem, and said, oh no, what did we do? And they went back in the wastebasket, and they started taking the stuff out of the wastebasket that they'd been throwing away, and they discovered that there are things called regulatory proteins covering the DNA. And these regulatory proteins can change shape as a result of environmental conditions in the body. And when they change their shape, they change the protein produced by the underlying DNA sequence. Now, get this for a second. We have 35,000 genes. We now know we can produce 30,000 different proteins per gene. How many of you think you could make a complex organism like a human being with that kind of a setup? Does that make sense to everybody? You're going, what does this have to do with sleep? I'm getting there, okay? I'm setting the stage. Think about how complex that is, right? So then the question is, what changes the shape of the regulatory proteins? Dr. Bruce Lipton, anybody heard of this guy before? Doesn't ring a bell? He wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. He was a cell biologist, University of Wisconsin-Madison, Stanford University. He's now an independent consultant. Guy is brilliant. He was doing this genetic research, by the way, back in the day. He says that everything in the universe has a characteristic resonance or frequency. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I learned that in engineering school way back when. Everything, even bridges, have resonant frequencies that they will vibrate at. That's why when armies march across a bridge, they don't march in step. They alternate their steps because they don't want to knock the bridge down as they go across. Anybody seen the glass shatter when the singer hits that note, right? That's resonant frequency. When the singer hits that exact note, the glass vibrates at that resonant frequency and things will come apart. So what he's saying, everything in the universe has a resonant frequency. He also says that electromagnetic fields can change protein synthesis. How many of you have heard that before? I guarantee you nobody. Okay? Exposure to electromagnetic fields can change how we produce proteins in our body, and magnetic fields are set up around the nerves, and thoughts emit the same variety of frequencies that activate biological processes in the cell. Now think about this. Nerves in the brain are electrical systems. There's electrical charge moving. You did work with electrical stuff. When you have a current going through a wire, what happens around the outside of the wire? It heats up, the wire heats up, and then we also generate something around the outside. Remember what that is? Magnetic field.
Oh,
Yeah, so more current, more magnetic field, less current, less magnetic field. Hang on, we're getting there. In other words, folks, the electromagnetic fields that are set up by our brains and our nerves have the ability to alter the shape of the regulatory proteins on the DNA. Think about that a minute. How you think, how you perceive your environment, and the connections between the brain and the body, those nerve connections, literally can change the expression of the DNA in your cell. How many of you heard that before? How many of your minds just got blown? Okay? I was taught it's all biochemistry, right? It's all chemical reactions. This is an energy-based method of controlling the expression of the DNA. So how you perceive your environment directly alters the expression of DNA in your cells. If you have a positive outlook, if you have an upbeat perspective on things, your cells change into growth mode and they repair damage and they go into that mode. If you perceive things as being dangerous, if you're stressed, the cells will go into protection mode. They shut down reproduction and they increase their immune response. Okay? Pretty interesting stuff. And they change the way the proteins are designed. So here's the deal. What's controlling this? This big sucker in the sky, that big battery we just talked about that recharges all night, is actually controlling the expression of the DNA in every single cell in your body. How many of you just now got a different perspective on how important sleep is in terms of how you're going to function? You've had that day. You didn't get any sleep the night before. What do you feel like? What's that? I heard that. I heard that. That was good. I know what? I tend to agree with that sentiment. I can. What do you feel like? You guys tell me. Tired. Sluggish. Body feels drained, doesn't it? You don't have any strength. You don't have any energy. Why?
No patience.
No patience is right. Yeah, that's my stress talk from the last time I was here. What's going on? The battery's drained, folks. You don't have the charge that you need to run all those systems. Some of you like to learn how to get more sleep so that your body works at a higher level every single day. How much do you need? We already talked about that. 7.5 to 9 hours. Depends on the individual. Most people can do okay on 7.5 to 8. Some people might need 9 hours of sleep. Some people are 10. But again, most people are getting about 5 right now, 5 to 6. Why don't we sleep? Stress. I was here talking about stress, a couple of months ago, okay? Stress is a major contributor. Have you noticed when you're stressed out, you can't sleep? Right? Hopefully, how many of you sat through the stress talk that I gave last time again? How many of you changed something in your stress management approach to help you deal with stress because of that talk? I see a couple folks. All right, good, excellent. Then it was worth my time to come here and talk about that. So, illness. When you're sick, do you sleep well? No. That's the worst feeling in the world. You feel like crud and you want to sleep and you can't. It's like, Environmental situations, physical discomfort, noise, light, medications, unfortunately, can cause insomnia. They can have the side effect of not allowing you to sleep. And then things like messing with your normal sleep schedule. I was just talking here a little bit ago. We were in the Azores Islands 2 weeks ago, which are islands 1,000 miles off the coast of Portugal in the Atlantic. It took about a week for me to get this cycle back because that's a 5-hour time difference between here and there. So it messes things up if you're doing a lot of traveling, long distance traveling. What else? Depression or anxiety, chronic stress, and pain or discomfort can be an issue. So if you're ready, how many of you brought some paper with you today? Anybody want a pad of paper or a piece of paper that you can take some notes on? Because we have a few folks who brought some. Is it okay if I share with you 7 steps to getting better sleep?
Yeah.
Is it okay? All right. Might want to write these down. If you got your cell phone, you can put it in your notes. That's fine with me. First of all, stick to a sleep schedule. Go to bed at the same time every single night, even on the weekends. I know all these people that like to stay up until midnight on the weekends, and they're going to bed at 10 o'clock during the week. So stick with a regular schedule. It allows your body to get into a circadian rhythm, a regular rhythm, so that when the time comes, when it's time to go to sleep, you're down regulating. Everything is starting to shut down, getting ready to go to sleep. If you mess with this, then it's hard to sleep. Pay attention to what you eat or drink. Don't eat a whole bunch of food before you go to bed, and don't go to bed hungry. Okay? One of the rules is if you are hungry, it's okay to have a little bit of a snack before you go to bed, but it should be something light, okay? And it should not be a protein snack, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. Don't go to bed either overstuffed or hungry. Do the same thing every night before you go to bed. Again, there is a part of the brain, which we'll talk about here in a minute, called the reticular activating system. It's part of your subconscious mind. When you do similar routines, that subconscious mind gets the idea, yeah, it's time to start shutting things down, getting ready to turn the brain off. So do a bedtime ritual. Make sure that you've got a good, comfortable room. Cool, dark, and quiet are the three best things that you can have for sleep. And if you don't have that, you might need to get blackout curtains or something along those lines. Daytime naps. How many of you like to take a nap during the day? 1 or 2? Cool. How long do you sleep for the nap?
2 hours.
2 hours. Wow, that's a nap. You do about an hour? Rule of thumb here is about 15 minutes for a nap is okay during the course of the day. If you get too long a nap, then that will mess up the sleep cycle later on. I'm going to ask both of you, do you have trouble sleeping at night, or are you okay with that?
Sometimes.
When you do the nap, do you find that you have a trouble with that?
More often.
More often, yeah. So that's it, about 15 minutes. Nothing wrong with a nap. It can be refreshing. It can help recharge the battery a little bit, but about 15 minutes, just a short cat nap. Otherwise, you'll mess up the evening cycle when you're trying to sleep. Do you have a question there?
How is it even possible? It takes me forever to fall asleep in the first place, right?
There you go.
Like
Well,
15 minutes to fall asleep and then sleep for 15 minutes.
if it takes you 15 to fall asleep, then set the timer for 30.
Yeah, but then
you'll
for
be
me,
good.
like I'll set the timer and then I'm like thinking about the timer the whole time. So like, it's gotta fall asleep quick.
That could be a problem. Yeah, then have somebody that you know and trust come in and wake you up after you've got your 15 minutes. I'm the same way. I have to have somebody come get me, because otherwise I'll wake up thinking about the timer. So limit your naps. Physical activity, exercise will get you better sleep. Real simple. You physically are using the body, burn off the energy that you've got, you're gonna sleep better. How many of you have discovered when you have a really full day, lots of hard work, physical work, you sleep like a baby that night? Okay? It's awesome. I love that feeling, man. It's the greatest thing in the world. Hard work, sleep like a baby. It really works good. So get some exercise into your routine. We talked about that when I was here last time talking about stress. By the way, how many of you do work out on a regular basis? You guys are a little better than average. That's pretty good. It's actually really good. About 20% of most groups in the United States that I talk to have some routine that they do, exercise routine. So you guys are closer to about 50%, which is pretty good. And then manage your stress. We talked about how stress can have a negative impact on your sleep. So all the wonderful tips I gave you last time, go dust off your notes that you stuck in the bottom of your desk drawer and take a look at those, because they are very, very helpful. Next thing, yes, question.
Quick question. Is there a difference between men and women and how they sleep? And the reason I ask is my husband falls asleep like that, and I can lay awake for 2 or 3 hours. Is it
Not
anything
necessarily
about
men
that?
and women, but does it vary from individual to individual? The answer is yes. And then my other experience is that most women don't get any sleep at night because the husband falls asleep really fast and snores like a freight train all night long, and you don't get any sleep. So, but no, it depends on the individual. Different individuals have different sleep patterns. So, great question. Any other questions on that before we move on? Did you know that what you eat has an impact on how well you sleep? By the way, how many of you'd love to eat like that? Wouldn't that be awesome? I used to eat like that back when I was a kid, and I can't do that anymore. So, there are some things that you should definitely stay away from when you are getting ready to go to sleep. Energy drinks, obviously, that makes sense. There's a lot of caffeine, there's a lot of sugar in those things. That'll get you wired. Alcohol, bad choice before bed. Alcohol will disrupt your sleep. Little alcohol with dinner, fine, but definitely nothing within about 2 hours before going to bed, because that'll interrupt things. This is actually ginseng. Ginseng is taken as an adaptogen. It's something that you can take as a supplement to help you deal with stress. It supports the adrenal function in the body, but ginseng is also a stimulant. If you take ginseng before you go to bed, you will not sleep, I guarantee it. And if you take ginseng with caffeine, your head will explode, so don't do that either. It's a bad idea. So ginseng in and of itself is okay, but you just don't want to be taking that just before you go to bed. Protein, in general, you want to stay away from high protein foods before you go to bed. 2 reasons. Number one, proteins digest very slowly, and when you eat it too close to bed, your digestive tract is working really, really hard to break the protein down, and it's going to make it harder to sleep. And there's also amino acids in the protein that are brain stimulators that will cause your brain to not want to shut down. So staying away from the proteins. If you're going to have a snack before going to bed, something light like crackers, a little bit of cheese, something like that, but stay away from the heavy protein stuff. Obviously, coffee, tea, by the way, also has caffeine in it. So a lot of people like tea. I'll tell you, a little tea that you can have before you go to bed, that'll work, but not regular tea. And then, I hate to say it, but chocolate before bed, bad idea. Lots and lots of caffeine in the chocolate, and then if you get in some of the other chocolate with sugar in it, that's also going to tend to keep you awake. So, any questions on these particular foods? Anybody want to learn what you can eat or should eat before you go to bed so you sleep really well? All right, here we go. Bananas, awesome before bedtime. Have a banana, great source of potassium as well. Cereals can be very nice before bed. The carbs, you don't want a lot of sugar cereal, but natural cereals without a lot of sugar can be good. Cherries are great. Almonds are great. If you're going to drink tea, drink chamomile tea. How many of you ever had chamomile, out of curiosity? My grandmother used to make this stuff when I was a kid. Chamomile tea, awesome. Helps to get you calmed down, helps to settle you. Great thing to have before bedtime. Another one that I've used is valerian. Anybody here heard of valerian root or valerian tea? Have you tried it?
I have valerian essential oils.
Oh, you take valerian, or use those essential oils. Okay, to what, help calm you down? Very good for that. Have you taken valerian before bedtime? Haven't used it? Okay. Valerian is a natural plant-based substance that's very similar chemically to some of the sleeping aids that we use, but it comes naturally. It's packaged with a whole bunch of other chemicals in it, so it metabolizes very nicely in the body, doesn't have the hangover effect of sleep aids. You don't have the problem waking up in the morning. Works very, very well. So valerian is another one that can be helpful for you. And yes, in fact, turkey and poultry in general does contain tryptophan, and tryptophan will help you sleep. So it's okay to go ahead and have a little turkey if you want to sleep better. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's why people sleep at Thanksgiving as well. So any questions on what to eat and what not to eat in terms of sleep? Yeah?
Doesn't turkey contain protein?
Turkey does contain protein, so you want to have the turkey not right before you go to bed, but an hour and a half, 2 hours before you go to bed. It'll still have the same effect for you. So yeah, very good question. But these things can be good. All right, cool. Next, get out of pain. Get out of pain. How many of you have ever been in pain in your life? When you're in pain, can you sleep? Did you ever wonder why? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to just go to sleep and make the pain go away? Why is that? Why doesn't it work that way? Actually, Muhammad Ali said something here, if I can find it. There we go. That's pretty cool. It isn't the mountains ahead that wear you out. It's the pebble in your shoe. Anybody here ever have a pebble in your shoe? What's it feel like?
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable? There was a big sigh right here. Uncomfortable, right? Drive you bonkers. What do you do about the pebble?
Take it out.
Take it out of your shoe. Get rid of the irritation. It's a good thing. Now imagine, if you would for a second, that the pebble is in your shoe, it's irritating you, it's driving you nuts, and you can't get it out of your shoe. How many of you think it'd be kind of tough to sleep with that pebble driving you nuts all night, pushing on the bottom of your foot? The pebble is irritating the nerves on the bottom of your foot. That's all it's doing. And those signals are being sent up to the brain, and unfortunately, I'll show you in a minute what happens with that. We also can have situations that are kind of like a pebble in the shoe, where bones go out of alignment in the spine in such a way that they put pressure on the nerves coming off the spinal cord. How many of you would agree with me, if you pinch a nerve, that could cause some problems? Okay? And unfortunately, most people don't know this, the majority of the nerves in our body are not pain nerves. They're not like the nerves carrying the pain signal from the foot. They're function nerves. They're the nerves that operate our pancreas and our digestive tract and our liver and all this other fun stuff. But it doesn't matter if they're pain nerves or function nerves, they all work the same way. When you put pressure on them, it starts sending all kinds of signals, aberrant signals, out through that nerve. Those signals also travel up the spinal cord and into the brain, and we have something in our brain called the reticular formation or the reticular activating system. All the information coming from our body goes through here. This then decides where it needs to go in the cerebral cortex to be processed. This area right here, by the way, is critical to sleep, because when we fall asleep, the reticular activating system shuts down this flow of information going up into the cerebral cortex, and that's what allows our brains to shut down and go into sleep mode, okay? Here's the issue. If we've got a lot of signals, like the pebble in the shoe, pounding into the reticular activating system from someplace in the body, if we've got nerves that are irritated, nerves that are pinched, this thing won't shut down. It can't. The signal is too strong, and as a result, it keeps getting through into the brain. That's the neurological reason why you can't sleep when you're in pain. There may also be a reason why you can't sleep and not being in pain, that you have misalignments in your spine in such a way that it's causing those nerves to be irritated and bombarding your brain with signals, and it won't shut down. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So another issue here, another thing that we need to take into consideration when it comes to the ability to sleep. So this is where I, as a chiropractor, can have some impact, because what we do is identify where in the spine bones are out of position, and we put the bones back where they belong. Just that simple. It takes the pressure off the nerve. It's like taking the pebble out of the shoe, and all of a sudden we shut down that bombardment of information going up into the brain, and people are able to sleep. And very, very frequent. I've had so many people come in to see me after hearing this presentation, and they get immediate results in terms of being able to get way more sleep, more restful sleep. So that's the issue. Any questions on that at all? Okay. I'm going to pause for a second. Sleep is obviously a universal issue for folks, and I always like to kind of throw it open to the group and see what kind of things you have learned yourself that you might want to share with the group to help other people get better sleep. Okay? I'll share one with you, and then we'll see if you guys have any other ideas. How many of you have ever had that night where your brain just won't shut up? It won't quit, right? Wheels are going 100 miles an hour, and it's just, you can't get it to be quiet, and you can't fall asleep. Would you like to know how to handle that? When your brain's doing that to you, get up, get a piece of paper and a pencil, and write down all the thoughts that are rolling around inside of your brain, okay? When you write them down, they go from your thinking brain up here, down onto the piece of paper, and then when you set that piece of paper aside, your subconscious, that reticular activating system that we were just talking about, goes, okay, we don't have to keep this information stored up here, it's right there, it'll be there in the morning, and it lets that go, and it lets the brain shut down.
I keep thinking more stuff to put on.
More stuff. You have to get up every 5 minutes to add more stuff, right? Yeah, okay. How many of you have ever tried this before? Has it worked? Yeah.
I just do it before I go to bed now.
Oh, do ya?
A calendar on my phone, and I'll be like, okay, what do I have to do tomorrow? Anything I can think of, I'll like add my calendar for tomorrow, and then I put my phone down, set my alarm, and then go to bed. And then I don't have like the waking up.
You're not worrying about whether you're going to forget to do something the next day, because you know it's already there.
It's done.
That is awesome. You do that every night?
Most nights, yeah. I've had to learn to do that. I didn't always do that, and then I was like, because literally, I would sit all night thinking of everything, and I used to do worried that if I don't keep thinking about it now, I'll forget.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
just put it in my phone, and
That is absolutely fantastic. That's awesome. But I have used this personally. I've used it with my patients who come in and who are dealing with issues like this. There's something about getting that out of the thinking brain onto the paper that just releases that stuff, and it works really, really, really well. So what else have you guys come up with? Is there any other cool ideas that you might like to share? Because I learn from you folks too, as well as everybody else, and it's kind of fun. So any cool things that you guys have come up with? Anything?
I count from 100, and every time I make a mistake, I have to start over again. And I usually don't hit 60 more than 3 times.
There you go. There you go. I don't know if you heard that, but she said she counts backwards from 100. And if she misses one or makes a mistake, she has to start over again. And she usually doesn't get to 60. And it's done. That's a great technique. I've heard that one as well. Another one that I just recently picked up teaching this class in another setting. Did you know that the blue light that comes from your computer, your laptop, and even your phone can cause changes in the brain that will keep the brain awake, keep it functioning? Which, by the way, is why I recommend that you turn those things off too. Don't be checking your emails at 10:15 before you go to bed. Shut that off, okay? But there are apps now that you can put on your phone, that you can put on your computer, that will change that blue light and turn that particular spectrum off on your display so that it doesn't have that big an impact on you before you go to bed, okay? Great tip. I just learned that here not too long ago, and so I'm sure you can go out and do a little Google search on that, but it'll help you in terms of dealing with the computer stuff that might be keeping you awake, okay? Cool. Anything else? Anybody, any other tips? Yeah?
I heard some people I know doing meditation for them.
Meditation is awesome. Really good.
It could even be just like 5 minutes, and then basically it calms them down so much that they can go to sleep.
Yep. Meditation can be awesome. Just the quiet time, in general. Turn off the doggone TV set and take a few minutes. By the way, that's something else I highly recommend. Don't watch the news before you go to bed. Have you noticed that the news gets you upset when you do that? Yeah. Don't do that. Okay, just turn that off. Watch something that's kind of calming and relaxing. So, cool. Any other insights, tips that you guys have? It's fun. I love coming here anyway. It's pretty cool. So, all right. So here's the deal. You want to get 8 hours of sleep a night. Really, really important. Set up a regular routine so that you're going to bed at the same time every night and that you're following the same steps before you get ready for bed. Turn off the computer, turn off the laptop, get rid of the cell phone at least an hour, maybe longer before you go to bed. Watch what you're eating. If you're going to go to bed, don't go to bed hungry, don't go to bed full. A little bit of food in the stomach is okay, but you want to go a little bit more to the carb side. Definitely stay away from proteins just before going to bed. Watch the drinking. No energy drinks, no alcohol, no caffeine. Get some exercise during the day if you're not exercising already. Cool, dark room. Really important. Get rid of the nerve irritation so you get the pebble out of the shoe. And if you're able to do some of these things, you're going to find that you're going to be able to sleep like a baby, which is my hope for everyone here in this room at this point. So, any questions about anything that we've covered here in this presentation? Any questions at all? Yeah, fire away.
You're like sleeping through the night. If you get up in the middle of the night and are awake, like does that diminish the quality of your sleep? Like sleeping straight 8 hours obviously is the best, I would imagine.
It can, depending on how long it takes you to fall back asleep. And there's a couple of things on that. If you get up in the middle of the night, first of all, if you're getting up because you have to go to the bathroom, you may want to reduce the amount of fluid that you're drinking just before you go to bed, within about 2 hours before you go to bed. But if you do get up, don't turn on the lights. When you turn on the lights, that will mess up, again, the brain chemistry, and you're going to be awake a lot longer than if you leave the lights off. So even if you have to get up and go to the bathroom, don't turn on the lights. Don't trip over the dog, but don't turn on the lights, and you'll find it's a lot easier to get back to sleep quickly. Okay?
Don't look at the clock.
And don't look at the clock, yeah. Particularly if you know you got to get up the next day. Don't look at the clock. Great question. Awesome question. Any other questions that you guys have?
Well, and like with REM sleep, it's normal to, I think, is it when you're in REM, you're most easily able to wake up?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like normally through the night you'll kind of become conscious again for a little while, but you just like know like, oh, it's natural. That's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, you'll come back to the surface for a little bit and then go back into deeper sleep. So, and that there's a normal sleep cycle that you go through. That's correct, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, worrying about what time you have to get up. Don't you hate that? The early morning flight to Cancun where you got to get up at 4:30 in the morning, that sucks. Never get any sleep that night, unfortunately. So, all right, then what we're going to do here is wrap this thing up. First of all, I thank you again. You guys have been awesome. How many of you learned something here in this presentation that you've never heard before, first of all? How many of you learned something that you can do to improve your overall sleep? Can I see a show of hands on that? How many of you learned something that you're going to do that's going to change your overall sleep so you get better rest? Can I see a show of hands on that one? Okay, very good. All right. Thank you. My challenge, I'm happy to come here, spend a little bit of time with you here today. please take this information that I've given you, take at least one thing that I've shared with you, and make a decision to make that change in your life. My purpose here is to help you regain your health, maintain your health, stay healthy, achieve peak levels of performance in your life. And the stuff that I've shared with you will do that, but I can't make you do it. You have to decide. So please make a decision, pick one thing, circle it, start, whatever it is, and if you do that, then it's been worth my time to come and speak with you. Now, in conclusion, I have spoken to lots and lots of groups all over the country. In any group that I speak with, there's 3 different kinds of people present. Number 1 are folks who are in great shape, exercise all the time, eating properly, getting proper sleep, they're healthy as can be, and they're in the presentation because they want to learn more about how to stay healthy. And if you're in that category, I say to you, congratulations, and keep up the good work. Okay? Second group is what I call the danger category. And these are folks that are maybe noticing some health problems creeping in. Maybe it's starting to impact your ability to do your daily activities. Maybe you're noticing that it's starting to get worse over time. And then the third group is what I lovingly and kindly call the train wrecks. And the train wrecks are what I was when I had the sciatica. Life is pretty miserable. Frequently, train wrecks are in constant pain, not getting good sleep. Their issues are getting worse. It's impacting the people around them. And life is pretty tough for the train wrecks, okay? I know. For those of you who are in the danger category or the train wreck category, I'd like to extend a gift today. And that gift is an opportunity to come in and meet with me in my office for a screening evaluation. There's no charge for this. There's no obligation for care for this. It's about a 30 to 45 minute visit to see what you're dealing with in your particular case and see if there's anything that can be done to help you. If I think I can help you, I'll explain that to you. If I don't think I can help, I will be honest with you. And if I think you need to go see some other kind of a practitioner, I will be happy to make a referral for you so that you can get the care that you need in order to be able to get your health back. Now, you're going, what's the catch? Everybody's looking at me, okay, what's the catch? There is a catch, and that is, I am super busy. My practice is packed. I'm gonna take a half hour, 45 minutes for you. Happy to do that. Happy to donate that time for you. But I would ask you, please don't schedule one of these appointments with me unless you're serious about coming in and keeping that appointment. The reason is, if you don't keep the appointment, there's other people who need to get in who can't, and that's just not fair to them. So I would ask you, I'm happy to take the time. That's my purpose here, is to help you get your health back, but please be considerate of other folks coming into the office as well, okay? So if you'd like to do that when we wrap this up, come on up and talk with me. I do have a few appointments set aside. I'll be happy to set some time for you, and we'll see what we can do. Is that fair enough? Is that okay with you guys? Cool. All right. So, any other questions before we wrap this thing up? All right. Did you learn something? All right. Fantastic. Then it's worth my time to come and be here. You guys have an awesome rest of the day. Get a great night's sleep tonight, and hopefully I'll get a chance to come and speak to you again soon. Take it easy.